Okay, thank you very much, Professor Yuval Sinai. This is the second lecture. We had a fantastic lecture last week. Today, the lecture is on Tavim B'Torat HaShkuta Shel Rosh. The professor wrote an article on this, and where was it? In Target, or which college was it?
It was in the Sefer in memory of Menachem Elon.
Sefer Zikaron Menachem
And
Elon.
it is connected to Menachem Elon. I'll say something about it.
And so I want to ask everyone that we're going to make sure to open the floor every few minutes. But, if you have anything that if you have anything that you want to ask, you write down on the paper. Every few minutes we can open the floor. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Say that.
Thank you so much. You know, I have so good memories from the last lecture and the Chavurah here. So today we'll talk about Rosh. There's no Calabresi. There's no. It's not Maimonides. They didn't write Moreh Nevochim. So why am I so interested in the Rosh as a Jewish law scholar? Someone has an idea. What's interesting about the Rosh?
He was in both sides of town, no?
Both sides of town. That's very important. Let's think about, I don't know, of Rav Shach, about 50 years old. He's going to Crown Heights and becoming the next Lubavitcher rabbi. It's more or less the same, you know, to be a student of Maharami Rothenburg, you know, a part of the Baalei Tosafot. And when he was 50 years old, he ran away actually, he didn't want to end like Maharami Rothenburg. He went to Spain. And the Rashba was very generous. He offered him a job to be the rabbi of Toledo, of Castilla, and he was okay. And that's something very, very special. That's first thing that is special. I'm not sure Rav Shach Lubavitcher is the example. Maybe Rav Ovadia Yosef exchanging with Moshe Feinstein. I don't know, something like that. That makes more.
Rav Elyashiv from his Zionist, and then becoming part of a different world.
I agree, but that's the ideology. Again, I wanted to say Rav Kook becoming the Satmirov or something like that, but that's not the same. I don't think in those days, I'm not sure, it's interesting, I don't think there was a great difference in ideology between Sephardic Jews and Ashkenazic Jews, but there were, of course, differences. So this is one very unique phenomenon of the Rosh. The second is, and that is related to Menachem Elon. Menachem Elon, if people don't know who's Menachem Elon, he was in many ways the founder of Mishpat Ivri, the Jewish law in Israel.
I'm just going to add that when you said this, the Rosh, this uniqueness, because it's from Ashkenaz and Sfard, one of the places where you see this uniqueness is when the chuvas between him and his Talmud Yisraeli, that was a Sfardi, and he was well versed in philosophy, but now he's a Talmud of the Rosh, and how you see how they look on Mishpat, and it's very interesting to see. It's
very interesting. That's what we'll talk about a little bit. What happens, this axis between Ashkenaz and Sfarad. The second issue, in terms of Jewish law, you know, Menachem Elon, that was a great scholar. Alav Shalom, he wrote a monograph about Mishpat Ivri, the Jewish law. One of the first books that he edited in the Hebrew University was Mafteach LeShut Rosh. And he writes there at the introduction something very important. 80% of Shut Rosh is dealing with Mishpat Ivri, with Jewish law. Jewish law, I mean, Dinei Mamonot, public law, a lot of public law, things that we know is from the Rosh, 80%. And it's not Poisek in Medinat Israel or something like that, that you So, and it's one volume in Machon Yerushalayim, so that's very, very special, and that's another thing that is unique about the Rosh.
How would you compare it to another edition?
Look, a regular responsa, I think less than 20% by average. Yeah, because it's not that they deal with the Chuntu Shabbos, they deal with.
But someone mentioned there that only happens, like dealing in Orach Chaim becomes the majority only like after Dal Darutzas. Like before that, most would be your Daya.
It's related to something very important that we'll deal afterwards, the judicial autonomy. And when the Rosh comes from Ashkenaz to Sfarad, it's a different world in the terms of the authority of the Dayanim, of the Mishpati, of the Din Torah. Whereas in Ashkenaz, the judicial autonomy was
limited,
very, very, very limited. Usually, they didn't have Batei Din Kvuim. They had Borerut Zabla, arbitration of Zabla. It's ad hoc. Beit Din that we choose. They didn't have usually the authority to coerce, to לכפות את and his rabbis and Ashkenazic Tosfots and whatever are considered as Yirei Orah. Yirei Orah, fear of doing mistakes. If you have a problematic case, you'd rather listalek, rather don't make a mistake or something like that. He's coming to a different planet. First of all, he has a lot of authority. One of the fascinating issues is that they have even death penalty. They're using death penalty, and he writes in the tshuva, I never thought, it's permissible after the Beit HaMikdash, we don't have the authority, but Yitzchak Ber writes, a Hasid Ashkenazi הזה, Chatam, he's maybe exaggerating, but there's a very important book to understand what happens in Spain in those days, a book of Simcha Asaf that's called Haonshim Achar Chatimat Talmud. You see there, wow, they're cutting, they're doing lashes and cutting and even killing, death penalty and prison and things that you would not imagine. It looks deviation from the Talmudic features, but they had the authority. They're very, very strong and powerful. And here comes the Rosh. Now, what Rabbi Morson just said is very, very important. On the one hand, the Rosh saw himself as a Talmid of the Marami Rothenburg, and his iyun was by the Tosfots. That's his way of thinking. He didn't change that. He didn't become a Rambamist. When he came to Spain or if. But on the other hand, he has to be a posek of these Sephardic Jews, and some of them have traditions for hundreds of years that are totally different from what he saw in Ashkenaz. So a lot of scholars deal only on the axis how much is the Ashkenazi Rosh tolerant to the Sephardic traditions of.
Are they dogma'ot of the other way around? Of Sephardim who came to Ashkenaz?
No, I don't think from those. I don't think that's why it's unique. That's why another reason, one of my professors that I respect in terms of the history of Jewish law, Elimelech Westreich. He's a professor from the University.
We had his son Avishalom a few times.
Avishalom, very nice. Avishalom is a great friend of mine. His father is really an expert of the history of Jewish law, and he wrote a very interesting article about ההכרעות של הראש בספרד, how he decided in Sfarad. And there he distinguished, I think, a very important distinction between theoretical and practical. Theoretically, he's Ashkenazi. And you can see in Piskei Rosh, and you can see, he does cite the Rif and in the Tshuvot, you can see the Rambam and whatever. But always his way of learning, there's Tosfot Rosh as well, is in the Tosfot way, yeah? But when you go to his practical decisions, you see a difference. He spoke especially about the way he decided for Sephardic Jews, but we're concerned about his judicial theory. His judicial theory, lechatchila, not for only Sephardic Jews. How does he see the function of the Beit Din, of the judicial system? And this is the things that we deal here. Now, if you want to see his judicial theory, you could do it in two ways. You can read his Piskei Din that he did as a Dayan in Toledo, and another way is read his more theoretical explanation in Piskei Rosh and in his Tshuvot. We'll do the second. I think that's more, because there sometimes you get a psak ad hoc. You don't always sure what was the context and what was the philosophy, and maybe ad hoc they had something very special, unique, and you don't always see that. In the tshuva and in the psakim, you do see that. And here, I think one of the innovation is, I'm saying, don't look at the Rosh only the axis of Ashkenaz Sephardi. He was very independent. He was very, very creative. Very creative, and in many ways, he is one of the most creative poskim of Jewish law. He used mega principles. He was not a formalist. Looks extrajudicial. We'll see the Umdina, the Merumeh. We'll see his way of thinking, and it's very, very unique. And I want to talk about, his independence, his unique lines, and I think his judicial theory. I think it will be the most extreme in terms of legal activism, way of thinking. He was very, very far from the Yirat Torah notion of, if we're not sure, we'd rather listalek, we'd rather withdrawn, and okay. So let's see. Yeah.
Do we see a gradual change? Do we know which writings were written when?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. I think the questions are sometimes ordered. It's something I forgot to say. First of all, we know. No, thank you. We were in advance. I told Stasa. First of all, he came to Spain in the 50s. He was 50. It's a good time. And today we know that most of his tshuvas, more than most, are from Sfarad. So that's very, very important. So, in many ways, he was trained in Ashkenaz, but as a real poisek, and he had the powers. Don't forget that in Ashkenaz, still the Maharami Rothenburg was there, in charge. He was in jail, but he was quite free there, and he wrote, and that's another issue. So yes, the most of his tshuvot. When I say most, it's not 60%. It's more than 90%. Yeah, are from Spain, and they're not written only in the axis of this is a Spanish Jew that's saying Shemitah and or doing Din Moredet, Kayim Aisalai. There's all these issues that he dealt with. There's a difference between the traditions.
Did he feel limited at all by the lack of smicha, and that the only real empowerment of dayanim is merutza lekahal?
Okay, that's a good question. I think at the beginning, for instance, that tshuva, we won't deal with it today, of death penalty, at the beginning he said there's a lack of authority. That's what he learned he said in Ashkenaz, we never dreamed to do such things. But you can see, and we can see the way of thinking of the Rosh. When you think, first of all, if I have the authority, I have to use it. Has to use it. Lasot din le'amito. I'm responsible. I'm not afraid. I'm not going away.
Jurisdiction comes with obligation.
Yeah, that's very unique. We'll see this notion in the Rosh. So he's trying to find the ways to deal with these hard cases. And he's known of creating halachic ways to deal with hard cases, with lack of formal halachic solution. I think, that's many of the things we'll see deal with these cases. So first of all, let's start of judicial independence. We'll see chapters of his way of thinking. Now, we will address the Rosh judicial independence. And as we said, previous scholarship largely examined him through the Ashkenaz-Sephardic dichotomy. Did he privilege Ashkenazic precedent, or did he adopt Sephardic methodologies after settling in Spain? But we want to acknowledge this access and to argue that such framing upscores a deep point, namely the Rosh self-conscious autonomy as a poisek. The Rosh famously asserts that post-Talmudic authorities, including the Geonim, are not immune from critic. Let's read what he writes here. First source, you have it in the handouts as well, but you have it here. אבל אם לא ישרו בעיניו דבריהם, he's talking about the Geonim, הוא מביא ראיות לדבריו המקובלים לאנשי דורו, יפתח בדורו כשמואל בדורו. אין לנו אלא שופט אשר יהיה בימים ההם ויכול לסתור דבריהם, כי כל הדברים שאינם מבוארים בש"ס, שסידר רבשי ורבינה, אדם יכול לסתור ולבנות, אפילו לחלוק על דברי הגאונים. If it's not in the ש"ס, if we think they're wrong, the גאונים, we can do that. אדרבה, אנו תופסים דברי האחרונים עיקר, כיוון שידעו סברת הראשונים וסברתם, והכריעו בינינו סברות ועמדו על עיקרו של דבר. If we would read only the beginning, it sounds a little bit like Maimonides, but let's see the reasoning he adds here at the end. He's talking about the notion about Hilchet HaKebatrai. Hilchet HaKebatrai, we know it as a Talmudic rule that those Amoraim at the end, halacha kemotam, because they knew those before and now they're applying. But this is probably, Tashma says, this is probably maybe the first place use of the doctrine of Hilchet HaKebatrai for a Rishon against the Geonim. And actually his two sons are the first, that's what Tashma says, they were the first that framed the idea of Hilchet HaKebatrai. I'll just...
8 sons. We know 3 of them.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you, Rabbi Yehuda ורבי יעקב, תשמע, מחקרו מפורסם על הלכת HaKebatrai, דברי הראש שימשו בידי בניו, רבי יהודה ורבי יעקב, בעל הטורים, כמקור הספרותי הראשון שבו בא לידי ביטוי הבנת הכלל של הלכת HaKebatrai כמעניק עדיפות הלכתית לפוסק מאוחר בזמן על פני חברו הקודם. So this is the inspiration for his sons to establish, according to Professor Tashma, that wrote a very important article about הלכת HaKebatrai, It started from their father, from the Rosh. And the Rosh himself was Na'eh Doresh Na'eh Mekayem. He's not saying only theoretically. We know and we can give examples that he deviated in very important issues from the Geonim and for those that. So first of all, let's talk about judicial independence. That's, of course, the Rosh. But now we want to come to another aspect. The aspect is the obligation to decide and the development of meta-principles. This is something that is very unique of the Rosh. His idea, he was opposed of the idea of the Dayan not doing his job. I don't want to, I want my hands to be clean. This is a difficult issue. יראה הוראה, להסתלק, afraid of the divine punishment, you know, that we have for Dayanim that make mistakes. He knew that, and he came from a tradition that was very, very strong on that. But nevertheless, his, I think, great idea is the obligation to decide, and he uses meta-principles. So someone asked me, you know, last time about Maimonides in the Moreh, you know, when he wrote his model there of punitive damages. So I was very careful. I said, you know, it's explanatory. He describes the laws of the Talmud, although we believe that. But the Rosh, he creates a model and he uses it for new hard cases. That's unique for the Rosh. We'll talk about two meta principles that are very strong by the Rosh and were not used in a wide way before the Rosh. The first is Umdana and the second is Din Merumeh. Let's talk about Umdana. Umdana as a meta principle. We have Umdana in the Talmud, but in a very limited issues. Yeah, when we deal, what is the kavana of a seller that is want to sell his house and he wants to make Aliyah Eretz Yisrael? You know, these issues.
Left himself something.
Yeah. Okay, so Umdana is what he thinks, something that is not written in the contract, but probably it's content. But Rosh uses the Umdana for something totally different. To go beyond the limits of Dinei Rayot, Dinei Eidus. You know, Dinei Eidus, we need Shnei Edim. There's no circumstantial evidence, Edut Nesibatit, Omed Adat.
Umdana is circumstantial.
Yeah. Umdana is circumstantial after the Rosh.
Right.
The Rosh, that's the truth. The Rosh, we know today every Dayan will say.
He creates it to Eidot.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, but it
But
is.
the Rambam also has Imdana, he just says something else. He
Okay.
says if you have Imdana, then you should harass the Baldein until you get the truth.
should bully the
Okay.
Baldein.
You should bully him.
Okay,
He
okay.
equates it to Eidos almost.
Okay.
Yeah,
so it doesn't have to
yeah.
be-
And it's one of its his. Look, even if you have poskim that had a wider sense of Umdana than in the Talmud. Umdana de Muchach, Umdana there, have different Umdanas. He was not concerned so much about that. He used that as a meta principle to deal with very hard cases. So let's see what he writes here in source number 2. He deals here with cases of fraudulent conveyance designed to evade creditors. Havrachat nechasim. How did you have a creditor and the
Alien. He emptied their account.
and you see he has a very high well of living, but he says, it's not my money, and how can we deal with that? So like you, let's see his words of Rosh. תורת אמת וחוקים טובים ומשפטים ישרים נתן הקדוש ברוך הוא לעמו ישראל. על ידי משה רבנו עליו השלום. I want to tell you, when you see this beginning in the Rosh, it means boom. It's not the beginning of a Hasidic drasha. When he says that, let's leave the formality and let's find a solution. That's what we need to do. Look away. דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום. דרכי נועם, דרכי שלום, but you'll use lashes in very aggressive ways to make that. צדיקים ילכו בה, ופושעים המתנכלים להיקש הישרה, להגדיל שקל במאזני מרמה, חייבים חכמי ישראל לסכל עצתם, לבטל מחשבתם. יען אשר ראיתי מקצת אנשים אשר כותבים נכסיהם ליהודים. fiction, או לגויים, אחר כך לובים מעוץ, וכשבא המלווה לגבות חובו מנכסיו, מצווה להוציא השטר ותולה נכסיו באחרים. He says, I don't have, all my property belongs to fictive, to another, הכל רואים, אף על פי שכתב נכסיו לאחרים, הוא מוחזק בהם ונושא ונותן בהם, ומעולם לא יצאו מרשותו. So there are rabbis before that tried to find small solutions, but he wants
A global solution.
global. באתי לשבור, look his rhetoric, באתי לשבור מלטעות עוול, להפר מחשבת ערומים, לא יפיקו זממם, להודיע ולבאר שאין במתנה זו ממש. לפי שידוע וניכר באונדנה דמוכח שלא גבר בליבו להקנות, אלא להבריח נכסיו מבעלי חובה, וילווה ויאכל ממון של אחרים ולא ימצאו לגבות ממנו. מכל, now he learns all these things. That's what's interesting. Extrajudicial, extra halachic idea. He gives examples from the Talmud, and from there he says, Mikol halin chazinan, because he won't find a precedent
Like this.
but he wants to see the spirit of halacha. What we see, the spirit of the Talmud from the examples, I want to tell you, some of these examples are, you would never bring examples like that, but he did. I'll give you two examples he bring in his Tshuvot. One is Mishpat Shlomo.
Yeah.
The second is Rabbi Bana. You know the story of Rabbi Bana that was told that only one of his sons was his biological son, and he said that I will give Yerusha only to my biological son. And Rabbi Bana said when they came, they wanted, after he left away, he wanted the Yerusha. He said, you'll hit his graveyard, and only those that were not his biological sons hit, and the one wasn't he gave. So this is sort of Mishpat Shlomo, in many ways. But Mikol Halin Chazinan, with these stories, from all of them we learn, כל הרוצה להרים ולהפקיע תקנת חכמים לעשות לחברו תחבולה, לחדו חכמים בעורמם ועמדו כנגדו להפר עצתו, לבטל מחשבתו הרעה, ואנו נדון דבר מדבר, נלמוד דבר מדבר, כי חכמי התלמוד לא הספיקו לכתוב כל הנולדות העתידות לבוא המתחדשות בכל יום, אלא שהבאים אחריהם יוצאים בעקבותיהם ומדמים מילתא למילתא. We should go afterwards. We're not finished after the Talmud. We just start. We just begin from the Talmud, and ראוי ויבטלו כל שטרי הברחות והתחבולות הנעשות עד היום. A global, not all of it canceled. וכשבאו לידי בית דין, שיקראו ותינתן דת בתוליטולה על טולדו, על הסופרים ועל העדים שלא יכתבו ויחתמו שטר מתנת נכסים שיראו בו תחבולה ועורמה. Now it's a rule that nobody will sign or write these kinds of contracts, אך יביאו הדבר לפני גדולי העיר ועל פיהם יעשו, ואם יעברו על זה, שיסתלקו מאומנותם. He knows how to work, he knows the job. He knows, like you said, when you have the authority, you have the responsibility, the chayut, and he uses that.
I wanna open the floor. Anyone wants to ask something?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Gutierrez.
I want to say he's doing, it's not a total solution, but he's doing two things. First of all, he's saying that Bate Din should not recognize these kinds of transfers. And then he's saying we should limit the sofrim and the attorneys from drafting such kinds of contracts. But any transfer that was done to a non-Jew, that wouldn't be a solution necessarily.
I think look, he started, we saw it before, under the demuchach, and he said,
But no, but you have to be moitzi the property from the non-Jew.
Obviously, the
Look,
Jew has authority of it. He owns it.
that's what we said. We said, first of all, the Jews had judicial authority
Over the Jews.
over the non-Jews as well sometimes. And we will see one of the tshuvot, even the queen asked them to decide. Maria de Molina, was the queen of Castilla, to decide in a case that they couldn't, the inquisitorial system, the Spanish, they didn't know how to deal with that. And we will see, I think that's the most extreme tshuva I know in the Yemei HaBeinayim. We'll elaborate quite a lot about that. Yeah?
Anyone else?
Yes, I'm just wondering. You said these two things that he comes up with, like the imdana and the din merima. I was wondering, is that a thing of the period, just like in the Gemara has these things like achshav shnasrab yaramuim, that at some point we don't think that the society has broken down. There's a lot of corruption, and the old rules don't apply because society is that way. Let's say Spain might have been way more corrupt, even though in Germany, this example about Studis was notorious in Germany, that all the monasteries would be notorious on faking contracts because they know how to write. I'm just wondering if there is some sort of period, like the Maran Rottenberg also said that you shouldn't, but I see you mention it later. Maran Rottenberg said that the Dimerema we should just. Is there something that says, oh, now people figured out how to be corrupt and we have to throw out the book. We have to change everything.
Well, it's a good question. It's a good question. I didn't see in his writings that he's saying it's because of Et Lasot Lashem. It's a very hard generation. He says no.
This is how we should think.
That's our job, and I think more than that. We'll see afterwards on Kol Darin Gvar that some rabbis say, the other side from the Rosh, a little bit like you do. I think that was his legal philosophy. His legal philosophy, and you can say maybe that's why in the article I say the major difference between Sephardi and Ashkenaz from the point of the Rosh is the judicial autonomy. When you have the authority, if you're a creator, if you have the Mesirut Nefesh for Klal Yisrael, you can't see the unjust, you'll use, and he's not afraid of using it. We'll learn, and the spirit, and I think that's what he is. That's the Rosh. We don't see, yeah.
Yes, interesting.
Along these lines, you're making me think. One of his colleagues called him a chassid. Perhaps it's along the lines from I think it's Rosh Hashanah Daf Yod Chesed Beis. Tzadik Hashem Echad Yirachav V'Chassid B'Chal Ma'asav. How could it be? Lifnim Tzadik L'Basov Chassid, says Rashi. Chassid Nichnas Lifnim Min Hashura, which we in our vernacular we say if the Mishnah says is extra halachic. It's not. It's the spirit. Nichnas Lifnim Min Hashura, to get within the lines of the law. That's where you find the spirit, and maybe that's what empowered the Rosh, and his colleagues recognized him as a chassid.
Very, very interesting. Well, Chassidim that are related to Chassidei Ashkenaz, they didn't say L'chaim, it's a different Chassidim, of course, from the Baal Shem Tov. I hesitate. I feel, because of the Chassidut Ashkenaz, the Yirat Hara was built in. And he's just the opposite. That's why I really believe, don't look at a Rosh, put him in boxes. He's not Ashkenazi, he's not Sephardic, he's the Rosh. He has a responsibility, and that's why he's a great posek. That's, I think, and you can feel it's because that's what a posek should do.
Can we assume that he was not making Mechiras Chumash students from this?
That's a good question.
Do we see anywhere where he says Yesh Lashlis Peshura, like where he
We'll talk
encourages-
about Pshara. He invents another machine. Fiat Pshara. You heard? To Perusa Pshara? From where do we learn it? The Rosh. Okay, let's see. It's becoming interesting, yeah? Okay. Actually, he's the one that used it. I should talk more about Undina, because there was a tshuva with a lot of circumstantial evidence that formally you can't deal with halachically, but it says it's Undina. It's Undina, and from the Rosh until today, he's the first one that uses very widely the notion of Undina, that's saying, okay, there's the formal Dinei Eduyot.
Oh, there's the Rambam also, no? There's the Rambam also. The
Rambam, one of the things I do here is
Chaim Chefetz is a very big mama on that.
I wrote about that. Maybe next time I'll talk about the Rambam. There's a difference between him. I think I'll tell you the difference. It's a good notion. It's here in one of the footnotes. The difference between the Rambam and the Rosh is the following. Rambam doesn't need Undina. He says Omed HaDayanim. It's in Chot Sanhedrin. Perek Kaf Aleph in Chot Sanhedrin. It's not in Chot Edutz. It's a notion. I wrote another article about that. From his point of view, there's Dinei Rayot, but the Dayan en lo LaDayan ele ma she'enav ro'ot. So he's putting the focus about the Dayan and his discretion. That's a different notion. The Maimonides מזכיר, בטח, חיים שפט נזכר פה. And the Rosh does not say the Dayan has, at least at this tshuva, the Dayan has the discretion to do what he thinks and what he believes. He said there is Undina. That's the reasonable way of thinking about facts. It's objective. This is how.
He's Mesadem Chadash the Torah Sarai.
Yeah.
That's very.
So that's a difference that I saw them. I'd say at the end, I think in many ways they get. This is one of the interesting things. The Rosh and the Rambam get to very close solutions from different way of thinking. Okay. Now we go to Din Merumeh. That's the second meta principle. Din Merumeh. It's close to Undina, but not only. Now, it's not written a lot about Din Merumeh. Just this bright in Bavli Shvuot, Minayin number 3, Minayin הדיין שיודע בדין שהוא מרומא, שלא יאמר הואיל והעדים מעידים, יחתכנו ויהיה תולר כלוי בצוואר עדים, תלמוד לומר, מדבר שקר תרחק. What is the regular interpretation of the Ashkenazic Tosfot tradition? תרחק.
Just walk away.
Walk away. הסתלקות. Yeah? That's a judicial withdrawal. The plaintiff is suspected of deceit. The Dayan may decline the adjudication. Now, here, we have to look very closely. The Rosh will not say they're not right. We'll see in Piskei HaRosh that he cites Maharami Rothenberg's way of thinking, but here we come to the distinction we mentioned by Elimelech Westreich between theoretical law and practical law. When it goes to the Tshuvot, you see how with small shifts, he get to a totally different solution.
But could you explain a little bit, what does it mean? What does it mean, theoretical and practical?
Theoretical.
What is the word of theoretical? Is like Ashkenaz, but when it comes to Maisa, what does it mean? How do you
It
explain?
means that you can write in Piskei HaRosh, we'll see it now, you can write that the interpretation of the Maharami Rothenberg is the one accepted. It doesn't.
You mean the Chuvas is ad hoc? Just this is one of the reasons why he.
And the Chuvot, he does not.
We can't set the Chuvas as a precedent. He's saying.
No, I'm saying you can, but I'm saying there's a difference between what he writes theoretically.
Yeah, but if
he
you say,
writes practically, not because it's ad hoc, not because it's
why?
hoc, because I think that what he thinks is the practical solution. It's the practical
Yeah,
solution.
but what does it mean? If
We'll
in the
see.
theory he thinks like this, what does it mean?
We'll
Okay,
see.
let's
We'll see.
see how it works. Okay.
He changes the theory.
Okay, let's see.
He
He
gives
changes
it.
the gears.
He gives a different interpretation in the tshuva than you would think what the tradition.
Okay, let's see.
Let's see. Now, Hada Amrinan, he says here on number 4.
Yes, correct.
Hada Amrinan, בפרק שבועת העדות דין מרומי לדונו כלל, משום דכתיב מדבר שקר תרחק, תרץ רבנו מאיר מרוטנבורג, let's see, number 4, דהיינו כשתובע טוען ברמאות. When the plaintiff is a fraudulent claim, אז יסתלק הדיין, לא ישמע טענותיו. Then he should withdraw. ואח המיירין, סנהדרין, it says that you do דרישה וחקירה, you investigate. when it's דין מרומה, כשהנתבע טוען ברמאות, אין הדיין יכול להסתלק שלא יסתכל הרמאי ברמאותו, אלא ידרוש ויחקור יפה לבטל רמאותו. So the Rami Rotenborg gives us a distinction, and that's what the Rosh, that's his explanation in his psokim, that there's a difference if the ramaut is from the behalf of the plaintiff or the defendant. If it's from the plaintiff, you should be mistalek. Mistalek hadayan lo yishma et ta'anotav. Is it a good solution? No, because you can go to another dayan, yeah, and cheat him, yeah. But that's, you should withdraw midvar sheker tircha. And what happens if the defendant, הנתבע, טוען ברמאות, then you can't
You don't have a choice.
withdraw, but you can make חקירה. Now the hard case is the חקירה doesn't help. What happens if he's silent? He's using the right to be silent. This is hard cases that he will deal in the tshuvot. But first of all, this is his doctrine of din merumeh written in Piskei Rosh. Now it's very interesting to see halacha lemaisa when he deals with issues in the tshuvot, ramaut on behalf of the tovea and ramaut mitzad hanitba. Let's see how he goes. So first of all, we see here something very interesting. We know the principle of the statute of limitations. Yeah, ityashnut. Do we have in Jewish law a statute of limitations?
Not.
Probably not. But someone like the Rosh doesn't like this.
We have Kesuba.
this thing.
We use Ketuba. In Ketuba we have.
You can say shalosh shanim chazkat habatim. You can say but it's actually there's no notion of statute of limitations formally in Jewish law, and he knows that. But he's concerned. He doesn't like this law. He says, אם שטר ישן הוא, כמו שרגילים בארץ הזאת להוציא שטרות ישן נושן, ליבי נוקפיא תמיד עליהם והמטלה גדולה היא אם לא תחבולה. למה שמרו זה ימים רבים? אם לא כדי שתשתקע ותשתכח התחבולה ואז יוציאה. First of all, he says, he knows I can't formally, I have to accept it formally. But I feel there's fraud here. Why are you waiting 20 years after the debtor is dead and you're going to the orphans and to the widow and then you're putting out this...
no documents.
No, you have a document, but why did you wait? Maybe they had answers. Maybe, yeah.
For the orphans you have Taninan. You have.
Not Taninan, he's not using
No.
The mitzvah doesn't have documents to prove the sign.
Yeah, but doesn't
No
matter.
questions, please.
No, it's okay. I like it. They speak English.
So the
I'm not,
people.
okay. So, okay, first of all, he says, I don't like that, but it doesn't say that he has a solution. Now he's using his meta-principle of דין מרומה. אם יראה לדיין שדין מרומה הוא, יימנע מלהשתדל באותו דין. If I would read Rosh until only this line, it's like the Rami Rotenberg. We're talking about Ramaut on behalf of the Tovea. יימנע מלהשתדל באותו דין. So what am I talking about? Well, let's read, and let's see how sophisticated. I think it was Spain or that, but he looks like a Galiciano. Let's see. וכן אני עושה כשמביאים לפניי שטרות ישנים. Look how sophisticated it is. אני חוקר ודורש להוציא הדין לאמיתו. First of all, I make inquiry, דרישה וחקירה. אם אני רואה באומדנה דמוכח שהדין מרומה ושקר, אני אומר שאין לשום דיין מישראל להשתדל בדין זה, וזה אני כותב וחותם ונותן ביד
So he
הנתבע.
gives a psak even, meaning he doesn't
He
walk away.
it doesn't give a psak formally.
אז מה הוא
He
כותב?
can't be, okay, I agree. That's the chidush here, that's the tichkum. He doesn't want to say, he wants to be in line of Marami Rotenburg.
Want to walk away.
I should be mistalik, but he doesn't. You think it's mistalik it's activism, of course. That's activism.
It's a real done.
I think it's a disaster to be mistalik. Why? Because he could go to a different dayan. So I only say I'm mistalik, and nobody is allowed to deal with the stars. So what is the result, gentlemen?
The jurisdiction stays with him.
It's like a
The
psak.
Nitbas protect.
Yes.
That's the psak, and that's the difference between the theory and the practical. It's beautiful
I know
because
the difference, but the question is, what does it mean? Why doesn't it change his theory?
delicate again.
Okay.
It comes what we said there.
I have a better solution for
He
that.
doesn't. He doesn't.
Also, this whole leg behead you.
He doesn't
he
want to
doesn't wanna
deviate.
walk away.
That's what's beautiful here.
He wants to do something.
That's a creative. That's a creative justice because there's one way. Just say deviate. I don't agree with Marami Rotenberg, but that's not what he says. He gives a total different result without formally deviating from him because he's mistalik. That's what he's
He
doing.
goes further and
one
he
thing is
totally
missing.
ignores the Maimonides.
Of course.
The next one he totally ignores it.
That's
and goes
that's where I'm
further.
bringing the next one.
Let's finish the next one and we'll open the floor. Okay, let's finish. the
Okay,
next
but
one.
you understand, it's istalkut that is very judicial activism. It's just the opposite of
He's machrim and anybody.
Okay. And again, I love his rhetoric. Yeah, how he uses the merumeh. I should mention that in that tshuva he uses both. Sometimes he uses the both mega principles. Umdena demuchach shadin merumeh v'shaker. So if it's umdena demuchach shadin merumeh v'shaker, I can withdraw, but totally globally withdraw. It means giving a psak against it. And now we see as rhetoric in another case, יושבי על מדין הולכי הדרך אמת וענוות צדק חגורי חרב על ירך, חרדת הדין הביא בלבבכם מורח, על כי אמרו חכמים מניין לדיין שיודע בדין שהוא מרומה, שלא יאמר אכתכם ויהיה קולר תלוי בצבא הדין, תלמוד לומר מדבר שקר תרחק. He's telling the dayanim, you don't be afraid, don't be יראה הוראה. When you see fraudulent issues, you should deal with. Now, I want to elaborate on the most important tshuva. Everyone that has Shuta Rosh, please read it inside. Klal Kaf Zayin, Siman Vav. I think it's the most beautiful tshuva that I read in Middle Ages. What happened there? It was a very hard case. And the hard case is that there were two partners, Rabbi Shlomo, I don't forget the name of the other. Yeah, they were partners, and one, they had a ASIC, and one brought the money at the beginning, and in the shtar it says when they cancel the shutafut, the partnership, the other needs to pay his debtor, he needs to pay for the investor. And what happened is the creditor, he had, Rabbi Shlomo I think wasn't his name, he had the shtar, but it was stolen. And after 2 days you find it at his partner's hands. And now the Beit Din are asking him, what happened? I paid the debt. Porea. That's why it's in my hands.
Parati.
What are you talking about? It's $1 million. Please tell me, how did you do it? When
did you get the cash?
Give me cash. Yeah. He had good lawyers. That's a hard case. The right to silence. That's a hard case. What do we do here? what do? Let's go back to Marami Rothenberg. Now this is the רמאות מצידו של מי? של הנתבע, נכון?
כן.
רמאות מצידו של הנתבע. מה צריך לעשות פה? What we should do here, דרישה וחקירה, but it doesn't help.
No, he's not talking.
He's not talking. He's a clever guy. So what we should do, probably Tosfot says, okay, withdrawal. What should do? It comes to the Sephardic authorities at the Inquisitorial. Probably they had ways people to talk, and it didn't help. It didn't help. You see a protocol there. It's fascinating.
We have that protocol?
Inside the tshuva, what happened, and he was a stubborn man. He knew I'd rather not say anything. So the queen, Maria de Malena, goes to the Rosh, the highest Jewish authority in the state, in Castilla. You'll solve this case. It's an important issue.
Jewish case?
A Jewish case.
Yeah, it's a Jewish case. You'll solve it. We don't know how to solve it.
Achos?
First went to the courts.
Achotem, you know how to do.
They didn't know how to do it. It started with the Jewish Beis Din, but the Beis Din
Withdrew.
they didn't know what to do. It went to the Spanish authorities. They didn't know what to do. So then she said, okay, that's the last chance. The Rosh, you're the chief rabbi here of Toledo. You should solve it. Well, this is a very interesting test case. And let's see what he says. He says, here if we'll use the regular framework of the Maharam, it won't go. I have to be very creative. כשבא לפני דין מרומה, he says, I'm 8, יש לו לדיין לחקור ולדרוש בכל מיני חקירות ודרישות עד שיצא הדין לאמיתו. נמצא כשהנתבע טוען ברמאות, and that's our case, והי דרישה וחקירה, צריך הנתבע להשיב על כל מה שישאל הדיין. That's what I learned from Marami Rothenberg, yeah? ואם אינו רוצה להשיב לדיין, this is the hard case, הוא מכסה ומעלים דבריו ומשים תשובות גנובות. You know, when I teach it in Israel, Israeli slang, Hebrew slang, תשובות גנובות is...
Plagiarism.
Play something.
Plagiarism.
But he probably meant something like that. He's not telling us anything. כדי שלא יוכל הדיין לעמוד על אמיתת הדין, מה יעשה הדיין? לזכותו אי אפשר. He doesn't like this possibility. מאחר שנראה לו דין מרומה, ואם יסתלק מן הדין, היינו זכות, כי בזה ייפטר. He won't allow something like this hard case that come to the judge. He has to be goisik. אם שום דיין לא יזדקק לדונו מפני שהוא טוען ברמאות ואינו רוצה להשיב על חקירות בדירות ונמצא חוטא נזכר. He says another thing, if you won't do the job, nobody else will do it. There's no other dayan that could do the job. ועל זה ועל כיוצא בו נאמר, no, now I see, that's fascinating, I'm sure. אין לו לדיין אלא מה שהן עברות. Of course, in the Talmud
It means something else.
Something else, but from his point of view again, that's the meta principles. וכיוון שנראה לדיין שאם היה זה משיב על שאלותיו היה הדבר מתברר ומחמת שלא יתברר הוא כובש דבריו, יעשה הדיין כאילו ישיב ונתברר שקרו ויחייבנו מעומד הדעת, אף על פי שאינו יכול לברר שקרו בביאור ובפירוש, מאחר שהיעדר הביאור בא מחמת רמאותו.
Assumption of guilt.
Yeah? שאינו רוצה, no judge will do this.
It is, because if you plead the fifth, essentially the guy wasn't talking, then it's an assumption of guilt in civil court.
Okay, interesting. I actually wrote opinion in Israel. I told them, the judge, that they should apply the Rosh in this case. כדי שיתברר שקרו, אומדנה דמוכחו, ורשאי דיין מומחה לדון באומדנה דמוכח כזה, ואין זה נקרא דברים שבלב, מאחר שהיא סברה מוכחת. We know that that's okay. So we see here how he deviates in hard cases, not only from what the Maharam wrote theoretically, but even the spirit is totally different. You know, he wants to solve these hard cases.
But he's using the language of the text.
He's using, that's what's beautiful.
This gives the consistency.
That's like we spoke. He's frum. Yeah, he's frum. He's not, but he's very sophisticated. That's a Galician. You know, that's why
He's layered, very
that's
layered.
what's interesting in the Rosh. That's what's interesting in the Rosh.
He's using the Heimische Sprach, but he's
He could
coming
have
up with the
broken a
reform
fifth,
ideas.
but it's assumed
Yeah.
guilt for the purpose
And
of
now,
civil
let's
issue.
see. I think maybe
You
I
don't
have
incriminate,
more.
but
Finish
you
the
can
student?
No, it
No,
goes
this-
further. It goes
defend it
Tshuva.
anymore.
Then finish
Straight up
Tshuva.
guilt. As far as
Let's
civil.
see.
Once they finish, we'll open this way.
No, let's finish the Tshuva. Now he talks about other things. Okay, in the Tshuva.
Should the dine is also
Shuda the Daine. Now I'll go to Shuda the Daine. What's interesting here, and that's why Rabbi Yonason said maybe it's ad hoc tshuva. No, this is principal tshuva. He's writing more than he needs here. He's writing a theory. That's why this tshuva is very important. And what's interesting here, they're exceptional modes of decision. Shuda the Daine and coerced compromise.
depends how you learn Shizah the dine.
Okay, let's see, fascinating.
Rabbi Tam,
What he does here. What he does here. He uses these devices as exceptional modes of decision, and his philosophy is, even it's there arbitrary, even it's we'd rather use that instead of withdrawal. It's a very sophisticated way. Now let's see, the rabbi said correctly, there are two ways of explaining Shuda the Daini. There's a machloket between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. Rashi says it is rooted in a rational way. Yeah, it's a rational way. It's not the regular evidence we use.
What's different than the Rosh?
Wait. I'll say. And Rabbeinu Tam said, it's like Shuda. Yeah, it's like the Rosh himself, he in the Psakim says like Rabbeinu Tam, not like Rashi. But anyway, although from his point of view Shuda Daina is not rational, it's just throwing, he what's fascinating here is the explanation. So why do we use such device? He says here,
why isn't Rashi the same idea of the Rosh?
No, because Rashi. Because Rashi says Reut Einei Dayan according to evidence that are in second level.
But here in the Rosh is talking now even without any evidence.
Any evidence. That's what's interesting. Any evidence. So
but it's quite the same line.
But he actually
not so far.
Yeah,
she's not taking it so far.
Yeah, I agree. But he in the Piskei Harosh he said Halacha is the Rabbeinu Tam. And look at his explanation. His explanation is היינו תם, כיוון שבא הדיין, הדין לפני הדיין, והוא אינו יכול לברר הדבר. We're talking about hard cases, we can't know anything. אינו יכול למשוך ידו מן הדין.
Yeah, but אינו יכול לברר הדבר could also mean, like Rashi's attempt, that he can't be mevarer because the evidence doesn't suffice enough evidence.
Let's read the whole.
It has to be closure.
I could agree, but let's see what he says in the after.
It has to be closure.
וכתיב אמת ומשפט שלום. Look, his rhetoric, he always uses אמת משפט שלום, כי על ידי המשפט יש שלום בעולם. Not שלום, it means social
closure.
It reminds the Tort.
לכן נתנו כוח לדיין לשפוט לעשות מה שירצה, אף בלא טעם וראיה. אף בלא טעם וראיה, that's Rabbeinu Tam. That's Rabbeinu Tam. How can I explain this crazy notion of Shuda Daini? If I have a philosophy that's what you'd rather add a psak,
even mistaken,
even throw what's Shuda that says from the Yerushalmi, to throw a coin. Yeah, it's better than to put it out.
To let it open.
That's his philosophy. It's fascinating. כל זה סברתי והערכתי, להודיע שאין כוח ורשות להוציא את הדין חלוק מתחת ידו. He was definitely against the Tosfots. Yeah. שצריך לגמור ולהשלים את הדין כדי להטיל שלום בעולם. That's your responsibility. לכן נתנו חכמים. Now he thinks we have a lot of legal instruments we can use. That's from his philosophy. In these hard cases. נתנו חכמים רשות לדיין לפסוק לפי ראות עיניו. במקום שאין הדבר יכול להתברר בראיות ועדויות. We don't have formal evidence. פעמים בעומד הדעת, that's אומדנה. פעמים כמו שיראה בלא טעם ובלא ראיה ובלא עומד הדעת. What's that? שוטה דדייני. ופעמים על דרך פשרה. That's a third one. The Rosh invented a device that the poskim Shulchan Aruch afterwards accepted it, that in hard cases, when you can't mevarer hadavar, there's no evidence to this side or this side, you'd rather had a coerced pshara, a yachloku. It's against the notion of pshara. Pshara is, you need askama, you need the conscience. But here, he says the pshara, not for shalom between the two, the defendant and the plaintiff.
Shalom ba'olam.
Shalom ba'olam.
Universal shalom.
You see
Tikkun
this?
olam.
Tikkun olam. If we have more dayanim
I
like...
want to open on the floor. Anyone that wants to add something.
Yeah.
So I see he writes, that's where when in source number 6, he writes she'en l'shim. His solution is to write she'en l'shum dayam Yisrael l'shtadel b'din zeh v'zeh ani koyse v'choyse v'noyse b'yad ha'nitzvah. Now that would only help in a case where he has power over the other dayanim. If he in his position as the head rabbi had this kind of power to get.
I agree.
Why couldn't he write? Let's say, would he have written Tana Tatovea En Lo Shim Shacha? Would he be brave enough to write that?
I'm sure he would be brave enough.
He's brave.
The Rosh didn't have lack of braveness. We can see here.
So but why did he use
because
that? It seems like it's a little bit of a cop out. He is midvashe. He is being marchik. He is being mistalek. He's just bullying the other rabbis that they shouldn't take a position here.
That's one of the reasons I said I really love the Rosh. He's like a Galiciano.
He wants to be all over.
He's very practical.
I think the answer.
He's
What
very
fascinates
practical.
you so
No,
much
I
about
think the answer
Ziyad
is
that
that-
you say
First of all, I remember for my father, my mother's side, the Galician. They're clever people that they know to the target the solution.
The Hungarians
and
are not
they do
clever?
that with the last cost.
Sorry,
With the last cost.
I think
What I mean, look, he does. He believes. He totally believes in what we said. We saw in the other tshuva.
Right. But he's not
And
going to
hard-
write it.
but-
He's going to stay limited.
But if you can get to the same result, no, I'm in Toledo. I'm the chief rabbi of Castilla. No rabbi, no dayan.
He's going to
And I'm giving you. It's in my handwriting. It's like a psak. You said it at the beginning.
just as good, yeah.
It's just as good as the psak.
'Cause nobody
If
can
it
be
was
amazed.
not a solution, practical solution, I'm sure he would look for another solution. He would write something else. But if you can get to the same result without breaking the tradition, he doesn't want to break the tradition.
right.
That's
Rabbi
Rabbi.
Just to answer my
esteemed colleague.
not colleague, but Dayan Berger's Shala, because he's a Dayan and leads in Torah, this is very important, the distinction to me. It's because the Rosh doesn't want to say that a star, Yushan, has no koyach. It's such a controversial psak because he's going to violate the trust of students. That's why he's employing this funny device, creating like a rejudicata without avoiding students. Imagine saying a star is not valid.
He doesn't want to break the system. He doesn't want to break.
It would
the
be
system.
terrible if he would say because it's old. I'm not giving you.
I'm not recognizing.
Yeah, here is not. Yeah.
Deinberger versteht? Thank you.
Even in this Chuvah Zion, he mentions the Maimonides, it cites him, and then he says that if it's a fraudulent case and the defendant is the one, for so he says, Maimonides says, if it doesn't answer the questions, then
I'm going afterwards.
Right, we're going up.
But if you look at the Tosfot, I did it. If you look at the Tosfot, you see that it was precise that from their point of view, if Lishat Chakira won't go, you have to be mistalik. But from his point of view, it was a door open for him to this creativity. He didn't say anything formally against the Maharam. That's what's beautiful here, I think. Theoretically, he's a Tosfot. He's the Maharam, but he does totally different things. Yeah.
Maybe it's not exactly this. Like the Rosh and his colleagues, who you say that they ask the Yishav because they have the authority, are they also looking what is the secular position on that? Like when they make these shikladas?
Well, it's a good question. He's not mentioning it. I think it's in his backhand head is that the Queen is asking him
But what
to
are they
tshuva.
doing?
Where did you take this from? It's in the Tshuva that the Queen.
Tshuva itself. You should read it at home. Unbelievable tshuva. I'm not saying I'll be delicate at the end when I'll talk as a scholar. From here, it's like the Shita, so you don't need scholarship for what we're doing. It's just the Shita, so to understand delicately what it does. I think it might be that he wouldn't write such a tshuva if it would not come from the Queen, and this was an opportunity, to give an example of Jewish law at its best. But I'm not saying that he's writing anything he didn't believe in. You can see it in other tshuvot, but here it's defined in a very. Let's see. Let's see.
Answer on this question.
Let's see. I'll tell you what I think here. When he says Eino Ladayan, he has to decide in every case. He's maybe signaling to the Queen. We know the job. You can leave. It's very important. We know the job.
Let me ask specifically. Let's say what he's doing here, right? The Maram Rottenberg might have frowned upon, like saying the extreme that he's taking this. What would the Christian judge in his city do if we would read this psak? Would he like it, or would say, no?
But this is what he answered. He assumed that the Queen referred this question to him
to solve it.
That to solve it.
She doesn't care the way she solves it.
That looks like that.
It's a very irrational decision.
The Rosh in the eyes of the Queen is a legal scholar. She doesn't. It's not a big difference if it's a Jewish legal scholar.
Yeah.
He's a legal scholar.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
He's not asking him.
The Spanish, the Goyim did not solve it. That's it was before in the Beit Din of the judge, not the Beit Din, the courts.
It was already in their court.
And
They had law. Spanish had like a civil code at that time, 1100s.
Not that we know there were 4 sets of codes in Spain at that time.
Yeah, but
Maybe only in Muslim
to deal with someone that is silent.
Yeah.
There's the Astical code,
Yeah.
and then there is the Jews and Muslims. Everybody has.
It's different, but they recognize that the Jews have a justice
There was-
system, and it's
Between the Muslim
legitimate,
Christians and Jews, there was a secular court too in
What?
Spain. Between the Muslim Christians and Jews, there was a secular
municipal,
court.
like areas. There was
Based on secular law, what was it?
What the
I'm
Canaan law.
Today, it's like Christian, Jewish law, like law is law. There was a
They
separate
had,
code.
They had
Didn't-
Canaan
yeah,
law.
because the people
Yeah.
under different jurisdictions. Jews were under.
I think they had a sort of a canon law.
They had a Canaan law, of course.
You want to ask
Maybe I'm all romantic with this idea, but it seems to
So they
me
did the
that
English laws, the English
again,
laws,
what underpins the whole
Turkish
Rosh,
law.
he knows that there's no such thing as smicha. It's not like in
Christian
biblical times when you have the Musmachim and this is the word of God. They're the ones who are being moira and we're looking for mamish emes.
Civil.
Here it's all
That's what every
about
country does.
getting along, living together. That's what Marut Salach Kahal means. We live together as a community, and therefore, to be Latet Shalom, that is an overarching value.
I agree. The social issue, you can see it's very important from him. He's very, he writes about it, but he says formally, Mikol Halin Chazitin. So he says, I'm learning it from the Talmud, from the cases, and it is true that you can find some stories, Mari Barisak, all these kinds of stories in the Talmud, that are sort of deviation from the regular format.
Want to ask something?
What these words, is this just the same words? Because Kol Zeh Savarti Barachti, and he writes, Lo'odia, she'en koach l'reshut lo'otzi et adin chaluk matachis yado.
It
As
means-
if like, you have no way of getting out of this. You
No.
have- is this,
No.
is, ain't caught. It's like a backwards way of saying it. It's like interesting, but he's like, you could. He likes that.
You know what people
It
tell
seems like he's like apologizing to somebody. I actually have no. There's no way you could get out of this. You
You're
can't,
not
like,
apologizing, and that's your duty. I think he's saying
ain't caught.
in Israel,
That's his
God
style.
forbid,
Ain't caught means you have no right. That's what he means. It's just weird words.
it's not your job is to do shalom ba'olam. You cannot withdraw. You cannot withdraw. You're failing as a judge to do justice in the world if that's what you do. And you know, in just anecdote, in some places when I taught it in law schools in Israel, people told me that it's a little bit like Aaron Barak. Aaron Barak, he says "Akol shafit, Akol shafit." Well, there's a great difference between them, but.
What Hakol means.
But it is a
It has
notion.
some similarity.
Of course,
It's
There
judicial
is
activism.
It is judicial activism. I did use here the term judicial activism. This is one of the editors, Aryeh Drey and Eversell, don't use it because they have different
connotations.
explanations of modality.
You have in
Connotations.
American
But
law,
actually, it's
you have an example in
From
Brooklyn
Chicago.
of a shul that there's no ruling from the American courts on, and it's just left abandoned. The Satmar B'Smanish on Rosh Street.
The Satmar Shulm Besmedish, because there was no judicial activism.
There's no judicial, so the courts couldn't make a decision. It's been on to all different levels, and it's just left abandoned.
Okay, we're going forward, okay?
We're going forward now. Till now, it's the nice things. What happens when a Rosh confronts doctrines that seem to delegate the decision litigants? These sugyot that conceptual are just the opposite of what the Rosh thinks about. Kol darim gvar. Yeah? Let's see, Kol darim gvar. Avidin ish dina lenafshe. Borerut zabla. All these are extrajudicial ways of dealing. The Rosh has to be opposed to them because it's against his doctrine. Kol darim gvar means we don't know how to solve it.
Survival of the fittest.
Survival.
Survival of the fittest.
I agree here that if we carefully read the Rosh, very interesting interpretation to these terms, we can understand why he has unique interpretation here to all these three institutions. It comes from his idea that, okay, it isn't a Talmud, but let's limit it. Let's give it an explanation, a rational explanation. Let's make it a very small exception to the rule of judge deciding that I believe in.
That's a very famous Rosh, this Rosh called down the Gemara. It has a different mashmus in the McGill, how Professor Yuval Sinai is bringing it in the Rosh.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
It has a different משמעות. שאין אחד מהם מוחזק בדבר. What's called דנים כבר? When there's no מוחזק, yeah? בדבר שמערערים עליו, ואין בית דין מחויבים למחות במי שבא לקח דבר שאיננו יודעים של מי הוא, והוא אומר שלא. It says in Baba Basra, what's the explanation? The Hawarba. Yeah, you have the ship that doesn't, nobody's מוחזק on it. Yeah, like the Beis Midrash of Arikno. So what do? מי הוא אומר שלא, אילכך אין ראוי לפסוק להם דין חלוקה שמא נפסיד לאחד מהם שלא כדין. ויותר, אז so what do we do there? כל דנים גבר. Now, כל דנים גבר, usually, the regular interpretation, because before we come to the Rosh, it's הסתלקות. It's הסתלקות.
כך לשון הראשונים, הראשונים אומרים שזה הסתלקות.
הסתלקות, and they don't say, בכוח, they don't use ראיות. Nobody uses ראיות. Let's see what
There's no rayot now.
Let's see what the Rosh, of course, dislikes is, so he reinterprets it. יותר ראוי לומר להם שכל מי שתקבע, no, it's different than שו"ת הדיינה. Let's see. יותר ראוי לומר להם שכל מי שו"ת הדיינה is done by the judge.
Right.
This is by the people.
This is a real problem from this because it's out of the judge.
But the Chiddush from the Rosh is saying, call down the Gavar. The Rosh is saying, call down the Gavar is a psak.
Yeah.
You used to say Kol Dalim Ga, it's a Starkut. He says a psak. So
It's a psak.
Now it comes to explain what's the rationale of this psak.
And
What's the
Rabbi, I
rationale?
think he's the only one that gives it.
He's the first one. He's the first one to say
Yeah.
it.
Right, but who's
No, not
deciding
only
who
that.
has the koyach
Let's see. Let's open
Chaim, let's open the floor. Let's see the Rosh.
יותר ראוי לומר להם שכל מי שתגבר ידו בכוח או בראיות. First of all, he says not only strength but ראיות. Again, it's something, ראיות, שיזכה. וסומכים על זה, he has to give a rationalization for that. It's like משפט טבע, natural law. He's concerned, I can't let, we just said, הדין לא יכול לצאת חלוק מתחת ידו. Now you're giving to two bullies to hit each other. And he gives here an explanation that of course it's very dahuk, it's very hard. שכל מי שתגבר ידו בכוח או בראיות.
It's like משפט שלמה.
אבל משפט שלמה is
The reasoning is the same.
The reasoning is
he knew the truth, he wanted to show to others. אוקיי, יותר ראוי לומר להם שכל מי שתגבר ידו בכוח או בראיות, שיזכה, וסומכים על זה שמי שהדין יותר עמו קרוב להביא ראיות. ועוד שמי שהדין עמו מוסר נפשו להעמיד את שלו בידו יותר ממה שמוסר האחר נפשו לגזול. ועוד יאמר זה מה בצע של שוא נפשי והיום או למחר יביא ראיה ויוציאנה מידי. When my rabbi in the ישיבה תיכונית said, when you see Tosfot or Rosh says ועוד ועוד ועוד, it means that the question is excellent and you don't have, and that's what we say.
We know this, the Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi says in the beginning of a Choyvel, when they bring all the Mahalchim, why you don't say Ayin Tachas Ayin, the Yerushalmi says, because you need so many rayas, that means that no place is the real.
That's also because the blazer took another
That's what I feel here in the Rosh. And the Shavut Yaakov, he looks at it seriously. I have the quote here. He says, what are you talking about? Today everybody has biryonim and there is. And you think the generation was different in the Rosh time, they were more delicate. And I don't think. And he knows that people are Ramayim, the Gazlanim, and he's not naive. But he has to have a rationale from the Shitasoi. This is a real Shitasoi. He wants to. So, yeah, and it has another fantastic nafkamina. What happens
if he comes back?
Comes back. We're called daring val, you take it, and then most of the authorities say, if it's not upside.
Continues on.
It continues on. Asaf Kol Adorot. The Rosh cannot allow that. You can't, how we said there, we can't, אין רשות לדיין להשאיר חלוק תחת ידו ויריבו בעלי הדין זה עם זה. He doesn't, so again, I'm saying, well, he's proved, he needs the Talmud. But let's explain it in the way that would not contradict his major idea. So he says here, היי כל דאלים כבר דינו, שכל מי שגבר ידו בפעם הראשונה, only first time, הוא שלא עד שיביא חברו ראיה. כל זמן שלא יביא ראיה, אף אם תגבר ידו, לא שפקין עליה הפוקה מיני. דלא מסתבר שיתקנו חכמים, שיהיו כל ימיהם במריבה ומחלוקת, היום יגבר זה, מחר חברו, אלא חכמים פסקו כל דאלים בפעם הזאת. גבר. This time, first time. וסמכו על זה שמי שהדין עמו קרוב להביא ראיות, ועוד מי שהדין עמו ימסור נפשו להעמיד שלא מיודו, ועוד יאמר מה? Again, these three explanations. So, לא מסתבר that they will let...
They would leave it open.
I think
in the context, בהקשר של הראש, שאתה מביא את זה, זה מאוד יפה.
אני חושב שבלי זה אי אפשר להבין את הראש.
Do we have other legal
Nobody I think, I don't remember explanations like the Rosh to the Kol Dalim Gvar. You feel it's for him a problem.
Do we have other legal systems that also recognize that you can't leave things open? Unresolved. מה?
אהרון ברק. That's why you
Ja,
have...
das ist nicht bekannt, das ist aber so. Das ist
Does Roman law have such a
different, the
concept?
different
Israel,
the context in the Rosh.
Israel is the most, I think,
Advanced
judicial activism in the world.
But in
You can't
Islamic
even
law,
appoint a Rosh Hashanah without you know.
What do you do with your high minich? Sometimes you have.
What? In the I'll just answer that. I don't know if you have it in
The Roman law.
Roman law, you do have a non-liquid. It's called non-liquid.
What is that?
You can say I can't deal with it.
yeah, walk away, meaning
Walk away.
it doesn't exist. And in Islamic law,
Walk away. I'm not. I think Islamic law they like Koldalim Gval notion. Okay.
That's not politically correct.
Yeah.
You should delete it.
So let's see another thing. Asiyat din atzmi. Wow. Wow.
Oh, there's been
Avidin
enough.
din
That's also very. That's the same thing.
The same thing. It's
No, the same
problematic.
thing meant to say that we know someone that learns, but in the context, what
Comes to the
you
shit.
did on the Rosh, it's something special.
falls into
that-
place.
It's special because he rewrites these rules
Right.
in his way. And let's see. Yeah.
Let's see the Rosh. Let's see the Rosh.
Kol din ad ka'avit she'achid oseh. He gives here 3 limitations. He kills it actually. Asiyat din atzmi. He dislikes it. And 3 limitations that at least 2 of them were not written before. כיוון דדין הכאביד שהיחיד עושה דין לעצמו, יכול לברר שבדין היה יכול להוציא ממנו. Only if you can have the proof for the judge that you are right. So you have the proof, but you don't have time. So you have the contract, but if you don't do it fast,
you can run away.
but if you don't have the contract, you're not allowed to do that. That's the first one. יש לו רשות להציל את שלו אפילו בהכאה אם אינו יכול להציל בעניין אחר. Again, if you don't have alternative, it's only the last way. That's the second. אבל אם אינו יכול לברר שבדין יכול להוציא ממנו, לאף כל כמיני לומר שלי להציל ממוני עשיתי. It's only a way of stimulation that if there was a judge, I would win because I have the rayot. I'm just doing it before because self-help. I can't if I won't do it now. It's too. ודווקא אם בא לגזול ממנו שראה חפץ שלו הוא בידו דאמרינן אחי, אבל למשכנו בשביל חוב שחייב לו לית לרשותה. You can do it only if a specific property or metaltaling that he took from you on that. You can't lemashken for other things because this is two-way. It's
And then we have the court system, the business system. You can't do it yourself.
Yeah.
Even if the business system isn't available, he says you can't do it.
So one that wrote about Asiyan Din Atzmi is Professor Shimshon Ettinger from Bar Ilan, and he explains, I think I agree, that again, he had this social peace idea that was in front, is backhand of the Rosh. Let's see what he says. Just a moment. הרצון להגביל ולצמצם את מידתו ותחולתו של הכלל המתיר ליחיד לעשות דין לעצמי, מתוך דאגה לשלום הציבור, מתוך חשש לעיוות הדין מצד התוקף, חשש הבולט במיוחד כאשר אדם נוטל חפץ שאין שייך לו כתמורה לחוב. And of course this is something that goes the way of the Rosh, that is very concerned about Shlom HaTzibur.
Kol Dalim Gavad is opposite to that, meaning he can't deal with it because the Gemara says it, but that goes against the peace, keeping the peace. He's just saying post the fight there's a psak din. He's not going to be me'is to say that this is not a system.
But Avidin is nafshe as opposed to his all these 3 devices we're talking about are opposed to his theory. And what's interesting, how he deals with it, how he writes.
He limits it as much as possible.
He limits it. Another example Moed Katan, if Talmid Chochem has a...
Who's this source for this? The next Malkut source. Where's it from?
What? 12?
Yeah. Where's it?
Moed Katan.
No, he's bringing the Piska, saying the resolution. Who's writing these words? The Tort was the Rosh al-Asar.
No, that's Talmid Chacham, את עשרות הראש על אתר. That's mine.
Oh, okay. I just want to know who's
only with עשרות הראש, he brings Rashi's interpretation, שברור לו הדין יידון, מוציא מבעל חוב על כוחו, יכול לדעתו על דין, then תלמיד חוכם
אפילו למשכן,
have a נידוי, מי שחייב לו ממון, he dislikes it. He dislikes this idea, and he writes in פסקי הראש, קשה הדבר לפרש כך, אם הדין ברור לו, אינו ברור לאחרים, ואיכא חילול השם בדבר, והודאה, אף שהדבר ברור, אין אדם דן דינו של קרובו, כל שכן לעצמו. He dislikes something that is extrajudicial. Although you're a Talmid Chacham, he doesn't like it. And the last explanation...
There's the on the author's name, that Michal Chukinsky wrote a very nice article on the Kinter Sasvaikis, that why we see, he said, the argument she wants to say is that these Dayanim that had a lot of trust in the justice system, normally they try to limit it, all those kind of things, because there is a justice system that could take care. Masha'enke, let's say the Shach that didn't have any trust in the justice system, the Shach was in a very, very, very difficult times, and that's why he encourages Abadin Jin and Nafsha. In the Rosh, like you're explaining, he has a lot of trust in the Dayanim system.
He was the head.
That's why he...
But this last thing that you're saying, he's actually undercutting his own power, and that's very fair. This last one is like something that, when he speaks about a Talmud Chochem, don't go around and use your... Right. You can't let... There's a Chivit from a Rib ben Rosh.
No, but he's Talmud Chochem not a dam.
Meaning not dying.
Yeah, but he also undercuts himself about Nidin and Chayrim.
Okay.
The Rosh undercuts that whole system of...
Of course.
Here he goes against his own Psaki in source number 11?
What are you reading now? Which
11 verses 12. In 12 he's saying... In 12 he's saying a dayan Sechil Hashem if he does extrajudicial...
Yeah, but on 12 he's talking about a permission, a specific authority given to a Talmid Chacham, so Rabbanan.
In a place where that number 11 wouldn't apply?
No, because he can't be Mamashken. He can't be Mamashken. In number 11 he can only
Rabbanan,
take
it says in Moed Katan,
that he could be Mamashken.
if it's Milta de Psikale, something that is precise, he can make Avid Inish Dina and Nafshe.
Make a move.
It seems that even more than source number 11. Because he's Talmid Chacham, he has this power.
A higher level.
He doesn't like it. He doesn't like it. קשה. לפרש, אם הדין ברור לו, he says, at the end, לא ברור לאחרים, יש חילול השם בדבר, וגם אם זה דבר ברור, וכולי. The last example, and then we'll summarize with a historic point of view. Borerut Zabla. Borerut Zabla, we know that the Rosh came from Ashkenaz. That's the practical way of dealing with Dinei Mamonos. Because of both the lack of judicial autonomy.
There's no Judas heroic because everyone is like.
And they had a tradition. We can see in Shut Yaakov afterwards that this is
preferred way.
That's the preferred. It says in the Talmud, בעמרי במערבה, שזה ברור לו אחד וזה ברור לו אחד, שני ברורים לעוד אחד, יוצא הדין לאמיתו. So it's ideal. I wrote an article. Ideal judicial way of. But the Rosh dislikes this. Of course, it dislikes because it's not the formal judicial, and one of the problems is ze borer lo echad v'ze borer lo echad. So I can be a borer of my lawyer, and you can borrow your lawyer, and you forget that he's a dayan now. He'll be a lawyer, and actually, according to the Talmud Yerushalmi, that's what you should do. כיוון שבררו מהפך אחר זכותו. That's what is written. Rabbi Zera, and the Rambam says that Perush HaMishnah. That's lechatchila. But the Rosh dislikes it. if you're a dayan, you should be a dayan.
Objective.
Should be objective. With kol Torah dayanim. So what he says, a very famous Rosh, we see here. לפני שיש חסרי דעת, טועים בדברי הרש"י ולמדים ממנו שהדיין יש לו להפך בזכות אותו שברר ועומד במקומו לחפות בדברים אשר לא כדין, נהגו כמה אנשים לברור להם בעל תחבולות ולתלים בדברי רש"י שמשמע שיש לו להפך בזכותו, וחלילה וחס לא דקדקו בדבריו שכתב דסברי הרי אני ביררתי. That's what he thinks. כי הוא סובר כך שיהפך בזכותו יותר מבזכות האחר, מתוך כך צייד לדיניהם. You chose him, so you think he'll be he will be on your side. But the Dayan himself should not do that. אבל בין עצמו חלילה לו למצוא סברה לזכותו אם לא שירה אלוהים גמור, אבל אם היה יכול להטעות את חברו לקבל סברתו אף על פי שהוא מסופק בה, הרי זה בכלל מטה משפט. אבל מתוך שזה בררו, מבין דבריו לאשורו, ואם יש לו שום צד זכות, נושא ונותן עם חברו, וכן עושה הדיין האחר לשני, נמצא, לא נשאר זכות, נסתר ונעלם לשניהם, שלישי שומע משא ומתן של שניהם, מכריע ביניהם יוצא הדין לאמיתו. It's not like the two examples I gave before. It's not something that has to be opposed to his idea. It's not Avidin Jder Nafshi, of course it's not called Darinval.
It could work. It technically could work.
Yeah, but you see, he's afraid of extra-legal, extrajudicial independence, something that is out of the regular Beis Din. He wants you, although you could understand, and that's how some commentators understand, it's balanced. Why not? You know, tabu erlo, and it's good that he's in your favor. And the shlishi is objective and machriya. He says, no, if you're not sure, don't be like a lawyer, yeah? שיחותיכם דיברו שקר אלה עורכי הדיינים. Don't do like that, and he dislikes her. So this is here, we see how he challenges with these sugiyot that seem to confront his idea and how he deals with it.
Like a central authority.
Let's get to the summary and then we'll open
It's a little bit not so reasonable.
Evaluation, but again, the last example, that's what I put it last. It's not the most important thing. Let's talk about evaluation and synthesis of what we said today. First, the article contends that the Rosh represents transition from the Ashkenazi judicial restraint toward more institutional and policy-oriented conception of the Beit Din. While not abandoning formally, he doesn't abandon the Tosfot conceptual regal, he rejects the Irat HaHora'ah as an operating principle in monetary law. And he says, you see in the rhetoric, don't be Yerah, you're not supposed to do that. The Dayan must not hide behind technical doubt when justice demands engagement. Second, the Rosh integration of meta-principles, especially Umdana and Din Meromeh, constitutes a methodological innovation. These doctrines are elevated to systematic status, enabling the court to respond dynamically to evolving economic realities. The Rosh thereby bridges the gap between formal halachic categories and the lived complexities of medieval commerce, the practical issues. Third, let's look on this development within the historical context. The Rosh migration from Ashkenaz to Spain exposed them to different communal structures and degrees of Jewish judicial autonomy. Spanish communities with stronger institutional frameworks may have required more assertive judicial governance. Internally too, the intellectual culture of Tosfotis, the dialectics provided tools for doctrinal extension. Extremely economic sophistication and creditor-debtor tensions demanded practical solutions. So finally, I ask if maybe, if especially the long tshuva because of the queen is written ad hoc because of her request. I think not. I think not. It was from his point of view, opportunity
Bring out.
to expose. You need hard cases to. So you usually say hard cases, bad law. This is example of hard cases of good law. Hard cases
They pushed
pushed him to say
What he really wants to say.
You know that's the way. I'm not opposed to historians, of course not. But Rav Soloveitchik, he has a sort of a critic against his son, I think, Chaim Soloveitchik. He writes it in one of the books, Rav Yoshebil. How historical circumstances can change the halacha. He says that it's not. It's like a satellite. It's when you go to the root, it will be in the root of the satellite. It's like the halacha according to the halacha rules. The historical issue will involve in how fast the satellite will go to its root. So it will give you. You have to solve it.
But we have to put a caveat that it's not always like that. It could be.
I agree. I agree.
It's also part of the language.
Look,
Yeah.
I agree, and I agree with Chaim Soloveitchik.
Right.
Look, he wrote. You should read his an unrebeat and Stam
Right.
Yeinam. He's Tamid Chacham, you know. He gives us. You can't.
We learned it by Ian, no?
You learned it in the end. It's hard to disagree with him. But here, there is some to it. I'm using this illustration to understand that, from my point of view, it was only opportunity. It was like something that she wanted you to solve it, but you see his activist approach throughout the tshuva. This allowed him to put it.
One second, we'll be open. People should get one question, but I want to say first, thank you very much. Professor Yuval, it was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
ממש עונג לשמוע אותך, ומקווים בפעם הבאה שתבוא. Next time you're going to come, we'll have you again in Hashem. And thank
Please daven for less snow. No?
Yeah.
That was very difficult for me.
Thank you, and thank you. And thank you for Zelig for helping to organize. He said they had special. And I'd like to thank you for Yoli for sponsoring and hosting us.
And they sold me Shabbos to go out, and I was not in jail. And
yes, thank you.
I think that what you said was just to be mamchish. The surah of rabbis in Ashkenaz were like Reb Moshe Aryeh Freund. I don't know if you knew him, of the Eidich. Whilst in Sfarad it was like Freund. While in Sfarad it was like Reb Shlomo Daichowski. Meaning they were tzaddikim. It was like Rabbi Niyoyne, Daf Siyata D'Shmaya, Weiß nicht. And there they needed to create legal systems for solutions. They were more here for solutions and they were more here for brachas. That's the way I view it.
Well, it's a good question, and of course the roots of what we see today. A good example is Rav Ovadia Yosef to other poskim Ashkenazi. What are the roots in the medieval? And there are. I'll say from a scholar point of view. Professor Tashma wrote an introduction. There's Shut, Mafteach HaShut, Chachmei Ashkenaz, Mafteach HaShut, Chachmei Sfarad. Shut is a very Sephardic notion. In the Ashkenazic world, only in Germany, they wrote, Maharam wrote Shuts. Rashi, Tosfot.
Very little.
It is something.
Very little, yeah, but it's not. Shut Ashba. It's a different world. So this is a great difference. So I'm not saying in all places, but like Chazon Ish, he was not rabbi of a community. He was a great Talmid Chochem, and he has Talmidim. I'm not sure if he was a rabbi of a community. Some of this psukim
wouldn't have existed.
And Rav Ovadia Yosef. He has old women that is coming with a chicken, and if it's strafe,
there's
nothing to eat. It's a total difference. So I think that's the difference. That's the difference. There were more mashivim and less. Maimonides was a poisek as well. The Rif was a poisek. Yeah.
Where's that? I'm curious. Where's that exchange between JB where he it's against Chaim, or it's generally like his attitude towards people that speak like that?
Again,
We want to know when he speaks against historians about the Sabbath.
It's against Chaim, or
it's in Divrei Hashkafa.
but it's against his Chaim.
It doesn't say it's against Chaim, but it's precisely against him.
No, I think it's more like the language probably that they employ that Chaim, let's say Chaim employs. You know, it's like more.
Look, he's a brisker, and from his point of view, the halacha is like mathematics. It has its this history does not change. I disagree with him, practically, but I just use this as an illustration. It's a good example here because I think that the Queen he didn't change anything. The Rosh. But it helped him to write a tshuva that we would maybe will not have.
Check down.
Until today, I had been taught, as many of us are, Talmidim of Talmidei Rav Aaron Kotler. You heard of Rav Aaron Kotler, of course. And I was told by someone who heard this from him that a V'nir'ah li of the Rosh is worth more than many Mari Mekomo, than many citations, because a citation can be challenged. But V'nir'ah li means of the Rosh, this is the entire Rosh.
Right,
the Rosh everything.
The whole Rosh.
Right, exactly. Until today, I thought that that's just an example. From what you taught me today, I realize the godless of the Rosh, it's the Rosh. But we have the Rosh.
I have to tell you something personal. I love Maimonides, and a guide. I was born in Maimonides Hospital, and my rabbi
Me too.
was... Yeah,
You went to Torah service?
Was it? No, Rambam in Israel.
In Israel.
That's called Rambam, not American.
But you appreciate the Darka Chiva from the Ashkenazim.
Yeah. It's not that I appreciate the Rosh. The Rosh is very, very, very special.
But it's like Rabbi Tam a little bit. I think he's al derech Rabbi Tam.
He's not writing a Morenical.
Right.
Nobody will burn his...
remember where that is?
Sanhedrin. In Sanhedrin...
It's the Talmud Bavli, of course. It's Sanhedrin. Shkoyer.
Can we say that the problem only arrived? Thank you. It was a pleasure. Can we say that the problem that we experience with this Ashkenazis that Halimet, and like you say today with the Rosh, we see it with the Rabbi Tam. I'm not a big expert, but we see it more than just by the Rosh, this Breitkeit. I know you said that the Rosh is the first. To me, the Rabbi Tam, we can see stronger judicial activism outside of...
Rabbeinu Tam, somebody wrote Rabbeinu Tam ve'bayot zmano. He knew...
Right. Bayot zmano, that's Chaim Soloveitchik probably. Yeah. But he's more responsive. He's more responding to his times.
Rabbeinu Tam is a good example.
Right.
Is a good example. But he was a Rabbeinu Tam. He was like Rogochover.
Yeah. But at the same time, you have the philosophers like the Maimonides. And you're saying you love the Maimonides, but to have a Rosh is like a refreshing. I think the problem only arises when you become like Tamimistic, like the Spanish, like the Sephardim, and you lose the ability to have the Chachma of the Ashkenazim. Like the Koyach HaTorah and the Koyach HaHeter that they had is phenomenal. They responded with the most, and then we see it now since probably like this is a comment that somebody told me that because we have to respond to the conservative Jews and Reform Jews, it made us so restricted. So it made us into a little bit, in a way, not able to be anymore Ashkenazim and not able to be Sephardim because we never knew what Sephardim exactly are. You see what I'm saying?
You need both.
You need both, and we lost either.
I think the Rosh in some ways is more close to the Sephardim than to Ashkenazim. And Beit Yosef was very smart. When he put him as the I didn't mention it, the third posek going in, and the tour, he writes on the tour, from his point of view, they were Sephardim.
All of them, huh?
Yeah.
The tour also?
The tour
is a son and lives.
Look, the tour...
He lived there, he's fully in...
The tour, you always need a son, that comes after. The tour did a what the Rosh did, he did a never step. A synthesis, maybe I can... synthesis between the
it's still recording,
and
by
the
the way.
Still recording.
Okay, so you can say it to the tzibur.
Okay.
So he did a synthesis between the two.
Yeah.
More and more.
Yeah, he cites the Rambam, the Rashba, and the Rosh, and that's why he was more accepted. Yeah, but the Rosh is okay. That's
So you're making a point that he was like he's saying he was like a little sneaky with it. This take, not to use the word sneaky, but at the end of the day, the Bas Yosef gathered all Sephardic poskim, and that's what
it's half because the tool. I don't know percent, but I think in most cases his psak is according to his father.
Okay.
So he does have a tendency to Ashkenazic tradition, that's for sure. But he makes a real synthesis between them.
So you're saying even the Rosh is influenced, his shivas that are survived is mostly from his time in
The
Peluda.
Rosh is not influenced not by the Rambam, not by the Rif, not by the Rashba. It's himself.
Wow.
You can see it's the Mahan, but he's totally different from the Tosfot. There may be ideas.
Tosfot gave this courage revolution.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the marvelous 2 lectures.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very
you.
much for participating.
And thank you
with us.
for sponsoring all this activity. It's unbelievable.
Wow. Baruch Hashem.
We should do something like that in Israel, the land of Israel. Eretz Yisrael.
Mitzvah Hashem.
Really, I think it's important vision you're having here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Gute Nacht.